Okay, so I just wanted to take a break from what I was working on to talk about the things I love about Odin and how it compares mostly to Go, since that is the language that I've been using up until now to do most of the things that I'm now using Odin to do them and giving it a try for the first time. And to be honest, I'm loving it, and I think that I'm not going to really go back to Go outside of the very specific use cases that I'm going to mention during this video. So as you can see, I'm working here on a Git server, which, by the way, if you want to join this learning platform that I'm building here, I'm going to give you the details somewhere in the middle of this video. But basically what I'm building here is a Git server that will allow me to sort of have a learning platform that, instead of using GitHub, which I really don't want to use, or even a open source Git implementation or Git, let's say, service or server implementation, I want to build my own because I have such a specific use case for what I'm building and for what I want to do, that the best basically implementation or approach for what I want to do is to build it completely from scratch. So the idea here is that I want to build something where the students, if you want to be one of those students, again, I'm going to give you more details in the middle of the video, but the idea is for the students to be able to complete certain kinds of exercises and then push those changes to a repository and then have all those changes be checked with tests or some sort of thing like that, and then receive a result, quote unquote, inside of their terminal. And I also want to have sort of this Git server be able to have the communication happen via a browser, because my idea is to have both of these ways of working at the same time, where the students will be able to, if they want, use their terminal and push things through Git and work mostly with their editor of choice. And these are sort of like the more advanced or nerdy kind of developers. And then I want to have the exact same thing, but for people who just want to use a web browser and they don't really want to think much about stuff. They just want to hop onto the browser, do some exercises, push the changes and see the results within the browser. So this has to handle both of these use cases, and the use case here is very specific. And if I wanted to use something like Gidia, which is a open source implementation, I would have had to use hooks like post push hooks, something like that. I'm not really remembering the exact name. And while that would be a possibility, the reality is that it doesn't really give me a lot of options when it comes to building a nice experience where you can see everything, like the tests running and then everything being updated inside of your browser. And if besides this, I also wanted to add other kinds of functionality, for example, limiting the kinds of files or the file names, file path that you can actually push, which is something that is, let's say, outside of the usual use case of Git, where let's say that I'm trying to build a project, or in this case a student is trying to build a project and the student needs to create a specific path. For example, the server directory, within that server directory we need a main.go. So that is just an example. If I want to ensure that the student actually pushes only that particular file and I only accept that particular file based on like the lesson that we're currently in, then I need to have like some more stuff included within the functionality than again what the open source implementations allow me to do. And then I could go on and on. Authentication that I want to have also again connected to the web browser and also in the terminal. I could go on and on, but I'm going to leave it at this since this video is mostly about Odin and not this thing that I'm doing here. But before we continue this video, I want to invite you to join the waiting list and maybe even the pre-sale of a new learning platform that I'm building, which is going to be the new face of WebDevFuel. Now, if you're not aware, this channel TechWith2 started as WebDevFuel, and my goal for this learning platform is for it to be very easy to use and allow you to learn very complex topics without having to set up everything from scratch, while allowing you to still, again, learn a lot of cool things. A lot of programming courses make you install things, set up things locally, which is very confusing, especially if you're just getting started with a new technology or even with programming itself. But this learning platform will have no local installation necessary, and the entirety of the projects that we'll build within a particular course will include the client, the server, the databases, the dependencies. You'll get access to all of these with a unique URL that only you have access to. And if you prefer to use your local editor like VS Code, Cursor, NeoVim, you can do that. But if you prefer to not have to install install anything locally, you can also use the web editor. And this will be the case for any kind of course or learning path, whether that is a full stack web development project or even lower level stuff like ARM, C, Odin, and other kinds of things that are different than web development. So if you want to join the waiting list, and again, maybe even the pre-sale, go to webdevfuel.com, where we're going to be able to submit your email address to be notified when this launches. And if you want to support the project, like I said, you'll be able to buy a 1-year plan to this new learning platform at a discounted price. This means that when we launch this new learning platform, you'll have, from that very day that we launch, 1 entire year of access at a very discounted price, because again, this is supposed to be a pre-sale, since this new learning platform is not yet available to the public. And as a bonus, you'll also have direct input into all of the features and the development of it if you choose so. So if you decide that you also want to give a hand when it comes to feedback before we do the initial public launch, you'll also be able to do so. And if in the past you bought the HTMX and GoSAS blueprint, you'll also have 1 entire year of access completely for free. You don't even have to join the pre-sale at all. So if that's the case, just keep an eye on your inbox that you use to join the HTMX and GoSAS blueprint, and you'll get completely for free just because you bought that course in the past, basically as a bonus for having done so. So again, to join the waiting list, and if you choose so also the pre-sale, go to webdevfuel.com. But I wanted to do this introduction because I think it's important to understand why I'm not just using a off-the-shelf solution and I'm going with a more low-level implementation, and I'm trying to build as much stuff from scratch as possible. The reason being that I need to have as much control over it, since I want to build like a good product in the end, and that means that I need to be able to control everything and not grab stuff off the shelf. And I decided to go with Odin. I gave Go a try first, and then I tried a little bit of the implementation of all of this stuff with C only, so pure C, and now I'm giving Odin a try, and this is what I think I'm going to stick with. And my reasons are, first of all, Odin is a low-level language. Now this is obviously something that can be debated, like low-level compared to what, but it is more on the category of the C kind of languages, a lot more than Go, because Go handles all of the memory, so it has garbage collection, and that means that in terms of performance, it doesn't really have as much control given to the, let's say, to the programmer. But more importantly than that, I think, is the fact that when I'm using Odin, I just interact with the, let's say, the primitives of what I'm trying to do, so arrays of bytes, like pointers, and basically that's it, like the basic types. We have obviously ints and all of these kinds of things, but I'm usually just working with pointers to stuff when I'm trying to interact with Git via the libgit2 library, and then I'm mostly just like working with strings and with like information that comes in over the wire and stuff like that. We also have here within this project basically the parsing of the HTTP headers and like parsing HTTP requests, and then also the network stuff to be able to start like a server and listen for requests and stuff like that. And like I was saying, Go sort of sits on this higher level of abstraction where it obviously is not a JavaScript kind of thing, Python or Ruby, but it still is something where I think that more importantly than just the language itself nowadays, the community itself like already has all of this built-in stuff built like on top of it, and it's really like the idea that for me to be able to do stuff the way that I want to do, I need to sort of circumvent those already existing implementations. And for this, I could give the example of HTTP, and I could also give the example of, for example, interacting with Git. And in both of these examples, I obviously could go ahead and implement everything also from scratch, but I don't really feel like the language gives such a nice experience as with Odin, because it is just built to be a C type language. You can like go line by line and see exactly what's happening. There's not a lot of hidden quote unquote stuff, and I just feel like this language sort of suits this use case very, very well. So I guess just to like put all of these ideas together, what I'm trying to say here is that Go feels like this language, especially today. I honestly haven't used it for such a long time to say what it was in the past, but that's what I read from other people. But especially today, Go feels like this language that you grab off the shelf. You have these packages, these libraries that you use, and it sort of gives this out of the box like use cases that you might have. The experience, the out of the box experience is very nice, but if you want to like work with stuff where you have a bit more control over it, the like ways of interacting with strings, with bytes, with pointers, with all of those things that you want to be able to work with when you just are working at this lower level where you don't really care about the APIs that were implemented by someone else. I think that Go doesn't really shine as much as Odin. And I think it's important again to mention that it's totally possible to do all of these things with Go itself. So I'm not saying that it's not possible, that Go doesn't allow you to do this, but again, the primitives that Go provides you with are not really that great when compared with Odin, which I feel just gets out of the way and just let you do the stuff. It's a very simple language. It doesn't have a lot of like ideas or implementations or stuff built into it. It just lets you do those things. And I think that Go has sort of moved into this direction where they started adding a lot of different features, a lot of different stuff. We now have generics built into the language. We now have different ways of looping, let's say, through different items, where Odin is a simpler language, where you only have one way of doing a for loop. You don't even have the while keyword like in other languages, and it still like has a lot of power just because of the fact that it is so simple. Then we have the second biggest pain point that I faced with Go, which was the interoperability with C. So if you are not aware, Go really is terrible at that, and Odin really shines in that department. I think that the best language overall when it comes to C interoperability is Zig, but I don't really like the way that Zig feels. I cannot really like explain, especially because I don't want to get into that during this video, but Zig really shines when it comes to interoperability with C, and I think that Odin is somewhere around the same level when it comes to how easy. As you can see here, I have like the function to init the Git library, then I have here functions to reference or to list the references, to open a repo. All these functions are essentially coming from a C library, libgit2, and I'm able to do like the interoperability between Odin and C in a very easy way without having to think much about it. I just define stuff here, and I basically have the ability, like when I don't know what the type is, I have here the raw pointer. I can also define struct when I know the shape of the stuff that I have here, so it makes things a lot easier. And I can even use enums. I think this is where it is. You can see I also can use enums to sort of map the enum from what is in C, what the enum looks like in C, to Odin, and I can use it in that way very easily. And this is very helpful when you have a C library that you need to use, which is the case here with the way that I basically want to interact with Git. All of these functions are going to be to do stuff like initialize a repository, open the repo, grab like information from the repo, push data to the repo, all those kind of things that we usually need to do. And then we also have here like this, for example, this implementation was kind of not that good, but I think there's a better way to specify these things. But also the implementation of HTTP with Odin was very simple to do. Again, just the fact that it allows you to interrupt with, in this case, the OS, and just start a new socket, listen to a new socket, start a new TCP server, and then grab all the data from like the TCP server, parse the string, and then see, okay, this is a HTTP request, what is the method, what is the path, all those kinds of things. All very easy because, again, the language gets out of the way instead of adding a lot of like not necessarily fun stuff, but like the smart stuff that some languages, obviously some languages more than others. Rust is the biggest like culprit here, where Rust just has so many stuff built upon it. Like you need to spend so much time just learning Rust itself to be able to do something in Rust, where Odin, I was able to pick it up in one day, maybe less than that, just go into documentation. And when I don't really know something very specific, I go to documentation and it's very quick to understand because, again, it is such a simple language and it just gets out of the way. So yeah, this is it. I don't really know now where Go really stands within my stack. I guess if I need to build something where I still want to have that speed that Go provides, and I don't really want to think much about it, and it is sort of HTTP related, server related, then I might reach for Go. It sort of like replaced that, so the place that Express.js had in my stack a lot of years ago is where Go sits now. So a few years ago, if I wanted to build a very simple HTTP server, I just reached for Express.js, and nowadays I think that Go sits in that place where I need to have like this server that just gets requests, sort of parses things, doesn't really need to interact with anything else within the system, or maybe it interacts with Docker, maybe with Kubernetes, Kubernetes, who knows? But besides those kinds of use cases, I just don't really find much usage for it nowadays. And basically within this project, the place for Go is going to be maybe like communication between different services, maybe something like that, because the front end is going to be mostly JavaScript. The back end for the front end, like the login, all that stuff is also going to be in JavaScript, because it's so much simpler to have all of that with server-side rendering and all that stuff. And then like giving that to Go is only going to like the requests are only going to pass through Go if I really need something very simple. And for all of these more complex things where more complex features are being built, I'm going to stick with Odin, because just again, very simple general purpose language, allows you to do everything, even though like the marketing of it is mostly around games and visual stuff and effects and stuff like that. It is a great language for everything, and I think with time it is going to pick up a lot of like traction, and we're going to see it being used more and more. So yeah, this is it. I might do a couple of videos like in the future about how I'm using it exactly, or even some sort of like getting started with Odin, but this is what I wanted to basically explain, since a lot of my previous videos were mostly about Go. So I wanted to mostly like explain why I'm now using Odin over Go and how that is going to fit into my stack in the future. So this is it. I hope this was helpful to you, and I'll see you on the next one.